Hello everyone. Today we're going to be making the Felicity Wallet. This is one of my patterns I put out about a year ago. This wallet is a snap wallet. It's going to have 2 snaps. It has a zipper pocket with credit card slots in front of the zipper, and then a back slip pocket. And on the other side, it has credit card slots, 6 total, with a back pocket. This wallet can be made in all fabric. It can be made with a cork accent. I would not suggest making it in all cork or vinyl because these sides get fairly thick once everything is folded over. If you do not have an industrial machine, it's going to be hard to get through all the layers if you do it in all vinyl or cork or leather. But you can put this accent on, which I like. You can also do it in all fabric. This is the Felicity Mini, which is just a half-size version of the Felicity Wallet. This piece here is just canvas, and it's the same type with only 1 snap. So it can be made in all fabric, or you can have a non-woven cork, vinyl, leather accent. Okay, so today I am going to actually make it with a cork accent. I am making this to match a bag I just made. So I have some fun fabric that I've pieced together so it will match my bag. Let's get started. Go ahead and cut all your fabric according to the cutting chart on page 3 of the pattern, and all of your interfacing pieces. Use the dimensions there in the cutting chart. The next step on page 4 is just the interfacing and exterior prep. For the card pocket and the zipper pocket front, what you're going to do when you put your interfacing on is just have an even amount on your sides. It's about 1/4 inch on each side. Same thing with the card pocket. You're just going to have an even amount on each side. For the zipper pocket back, you just want to center your interfacing there right in the middle. Again, about 1/4 inch all the way around. For the pocket side extensions, it's going to be slightly different. What you're going to want to do, see if we can get this scene on here. You're actually going to shift your interfacing slightly over to one edge. So on one edge, you're going to have 1/4 inch, and on the other edge, you're going to have a 1/2 inch of your fabric showing. This is to help keep things out of seam allowances later. If you have a directional fabric that you're using, I would suggest having your interfacing, 2 of them, have them closer on the left, and 2 of them, two of them have them closer on the left, and 2 of them have them closer on the right hand side. That way when you put them on, your print will be facing the same direction. But that is completely up to you. The next step is to put the interfacing on the interior lining. When you cut your interior lining, you're going to cut it as a square, or a rectangle, but then you're going to need to use your templates to cut out a small section of a curve. So first you're going to turn your interior lining to the wrong side, and you're going to use the appropriate template, and you're just going to trace just this curved section on each side of your lining. Now go ahead and get your interfacing, and you're going to be using the interfacing template, which is the dotted line on your other template. I go ahead and cut out a second one because it's easier for me. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to trace that curve on each end of your interfacing. Okay, so go ahead and cut your curves off, and then we're going to head over to the ironing board. Once you have your curves cut out of your interfacing and your lining, you're going to iron your interfacing to the wrong side of your lining. It's going to be centered, and you're going to want to have a 1/2 inch all the way around. This is important because we're trying to keep as many of the layers outside of the seam allowance as we can. Depending on your fabric, like I said, those edges can get a little bit thick toward the end. So this is just a way to kind of keep all those layers down. I like to take my little measuring tool and just go around on all the sides just to double check myself that I have a 1/2 inch about on all the sides. Okay. Once your interfacing is where you want it, go ahead and iron it on per the instructions of your chosen lining or your chosen interfacing, and then we'll move on to the next step. Next, we're going to prep the exterior body. I am going with option A in the instructions because I'm using a non-woven material for the accent. If you're using a woven material accent, I will talk a little bit about that. That is option B. So the first thing you want to do is you want to mark a line, measure in what it tells you in the pattern on each of the long ends, and then you're going to place a piece of double-sided tape along each edge, which I've already done. And we're going to take our exterior pieces. Go ahead and take your double-sided tape off there. Have everything to the wrong side, and you're going to line up the edge of your exterior piece right along the line you drew on your accent piece. You want the edges to align, which mine don't, so hold on just a second. And you want the edge of your exterior pieces to line up with the line you drew on the accent. Just give that a good press to get it to stick to the tape. We're going to sew it. It's not just going to be with the tape, but you want it there. If you're doing option B, what you're going to do instead of using tape is you're just going to do the traditional sew. If this is fabric along with this, you're just going to put your pieces wrong side together, sew your seam allowance, and open it up. And you're going to do that on each side. But we're going with option A, so we're going to do the same thing over here. It's good to note, if you have directional fabric, you want to make sure that your directional fabric is orientated so the bottom of the directional fabric is against your accent. So you want your fabric to look like this, and you want to make sure you do that on both sides. So they're going to look like they're going opposite each other, but once this is folded, they're both going to be facing the same direction. Since I have these stripes, I want to make sure my stripes are on the same side. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're just going to line up your side edges, and you want the bottom edge of your fabric to meet up with the line you drew on the accent. Give it a good press to get the tape to stick. All right, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew our pieces together. Right, over at our sewing machine, we're going to sew the cork or your accent piece to your exterior body fabric with the seam allowance noted in the pattern. You can go ahead and backstitch. This is going to be hidden here on this side later. The reason we do this differently in option A when we're using a non-woven fabric versus option B when you're using all fabric is to help reduce the thickness. Usually non-woven cork vinyl leather is going to be thicker than fabric. So to keep those side seams not quite so bulky, doing it this way and leaving your edge raw on your accent with a non-woven will help reduce that bulk instead of having 2 layers when it's seamed in the traditional way and folded. All right, so we did one side, we're going to go down and do the other. Did I backstitch? I don't know if I did or not. That's okay. We'll tie it off if I didn't. Okay. So now we have our accent sewn to our exterior body pieces, and we're going to go over and get the interfacing and finish prepping it and move on. Once you have your exterior sewn together, it is going to be about 1/2 inch longer than it's going to be. I gave you just a little bit of wiggle room depending on how fabric stretches and how your seams sew. All of the dimensions are in your pattern, but you're going to want to cut off approximately 1/4 inch from each side. Don't just cut off 1/2 inch from one side because then you're not going to be even. If your piece does not measure what the pattern says, then you're going to find your middle and you're going to measure the distance it tells you from the middle and cut each side. Once you do that, you're going to once again do the same thing you did with the lining, and you're going to draw your curves on each end, and they're going to be cut out like this. And you're going to do the same thing with your interfacing. If you are doing an option with the non-woven in the middle, you do not need to have interfacing in the middle. Typically this calls for a non-woven interfacing that's going to be a little bit stiffer. That will help get your wallet a little bit more structure. Because I am making this to match a quilted bag that I recently made, I'm actually going to be quilting. So I am using a just a fleece fusible interfacing to be kind of like my batting that I use because I want it to match my bag. Whatever interfacing you want to use for this, you're going to do it the same way. You're going to measure using your interfacing template, cut your curve, and then you're going to place the interfacing on this side and then on the other side the same way you did for your lining. You're going to line it up so that you have 1/2 inch all the way on the edges and around the curve. If you're doing this with a all fabric, I do suggest using the other option where it's just one piece for your interfacing. And it's going to go over the whole of your exterior body, just like it did with the lining. And the same thing, you're going to line it up so you have 1/2 inch around the whole thing. So get your interfacing on accordingly. I am actually going to get my interfacing on, quilt this up, and then we will be ready to actually get started making this wallet. On to our next part. We're going to make the strap. I tend to make the strap first because when I get done sewing the actual item, the purse or the wallet, if I still have to make a strap, I feel like, no, I have one more thing to do. I thought I was done. So I tend to make the strap first. We're going with option A for the strap. I'm using some rainbow cork here. Go ahead and draw your line down the middle, and then you can either use double-sided tape or you can use clips, and you're going to fold your edge. Oops, sorry. You're going to fold your edge in to meet that line. I like to use clips. I feel like my double-sided tape isn't sticky enough for this small of a fold, because this is only going to be a 1/2 inch strap. And when I do this small of a fold, my tape just doesn't like to hold that down. So I clip it. I am sorry, I am sniffy. It is like 0 degrees here this week in central Indiana. Actually, it's supposed to be a little bit warmer. I think we're supposed to get up to like, I don't know, 10 or something. Once you get it all clipped in place, I'm sorry, I lost what I was saying. Once you get it all clipped in place, just take it over to your machine. And we're just going to sew down the edge. We're going to do one side, and then we're going to flip it over, fold our other side in, and do the other side. Remember, this is option A for a non-woven strap, whether it's cork or vinyl or leather. If you're using fabric, you want to follow the instructions for option B, which is after that. Once you get your strap sewn together, you're going to feed one end through your swivel clasp and fold over just a little bit there, about 1/2 inch or so. Okay, then you're going to take your other end and you're going to slide it under your clasp so that it meets together. Okay. Now we're going to take this back over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to stitch a little box. Let me zoom in a little for you. We're going to stitch just a little box here to keep it in place. Once you get your stitching, if you want to add a rivet to kind of help hold it together, and then just to add a little bit of shininess to your clasp, you can do that as well. You can either just sew straight across right here and use that rivet to help hold everything in place. I tend to sew a box more often than not, just to be extra careful that the clasp doesn't fall, or the strap doesn't fall apart. All right, we'll just cut those threads. And I'm going to put a rivet on mine. And then we'll move on to our next step. We are now on the card pocket assembly section of our pattern, and we are going to be making the folds for our card pocket. There's a nice diagram that you're going to follow to mark your lines on your card pocket, on your fold lines on your card pocket. I have marked them, but it's hard to see. There are little white marks here along the edge, and I've done a little clip in mine to help myself see once I start folding. The thing to note about this is you're going to measure your first measurement in from the left side. Measure in that many inches, and then from that mark is where you're going to measure your second set of measurements, and then from each mark is going to be where you measure in. You know what? I actually have this backward. This is my left side. I got switched as I was moving things around. All right, so what you're going to do first is you're going to take that left side and you're going to fold it wrong sides together on your first set of marks. And you're going to give that a press. Alright, flip that over, and you're going to fold the bottom up at your next set of marks so your right sides are together. So find that next set of marks. On each side. And then give that a press. You're going to continue folding and pressing at each set of marks, and you're going to alternate wrong side together and right side together. As you get your last fold in, go ahead and just give it an overall press to get those creases in there nice and good. Okay. All right, there we go. There's our card pocket. You're going to have 1, 2, 3 pockets. And then this fourth fold up here is going to be the slip pocket behind. There are going to be 7 folds total. You're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 here on the right side, and then there are going to be 1, 2, 3 folds under the wrong side of the fabric. What we're going to do next is we're going to go and we're going to top stitch across each of these folds on the right side of the fabric. We're going to top stitch along the top of each of the pockets here. I'm using a contrasting thread so you all can see where and what I am sewing. Feel free to use a matching thread if you don't want these top stitching to be as visible. Now, you want to make sure you fold that pocket out of the way so you're only sewing across the top of the pocket and not sewing your pocket shut. And you're just going to go across each of these 4 folds on the outside of the card pocket. fold your pocket back up. There we go. We have our nice top stitched pocket edges. You're going to want to make sure your pockets are pretty even between the pockets. If you need to kind of pull or realign a little bit, and then go ahead and put a couple clips on the side to kind of help hold everything steady. You don't want anything to slip as you're going to sew. So what we're going to do next is we're going to sew a line, a dividing line, down the center of our card pocket. We're going to start at the top of this pocket, the first pocket. Don't start at your first fold. Start at this next one at the top of the pocket. That way you don't have this stitch line going all the way up. Okay, and you're just going to sew it down to the bottom. I like to turn my piece over and unclip this back section here. Let's get that back on there. And fold that up out of the way. I draw my line on the wrong side. I don't like having it on the front side and having to get rid of it, so I'd go ahead and draw it on the back side. I feel with my finger, this notch right here is the top of that pocket, so I'm going to stop, or I'm going to start there, and I'm just going to sew down the line all the way to the bottom. You're going to want to flip that back portion out of the way. I like to do this just because it keeps you from having any sort of seam showing on the back side of your card pocket. It's not really seen, but if you put things into the slip pocket, you would see the back of it. I just think it looks a little neater, so that's why I flip it back out of the way and sew from this back side. All right, just sew straight down the middle. And follow your line. And now you don't have a sew line down the back of your pocket here. I'm going to pull, I didn't backspace up there, or backstitch up there, since I'm using such a contrasting thread. So I'm going to pull my thread through to the wrong side and tie that off. And there we go. We have our card pockets divided. What we're going to do next is we're actually just going to do a basting down the sides to help hold everything together when we put our side extensions on next. Okay, now we have our sides basted and we're ready to put on our side accents. We have our side extension pieces here, and you're going to want to take these and you're going to go and fold them in half, right sides together. And just finger press a little crease in there. All right, you're going to see we have our larger piece of fabric showing and our smaller section of the fabric sewing. You want the smaller section of fabric sewing to be the side you're going to sew on. So you're going to take it, you're going to take it and you're going to place it over your pocket so that the crease you just put into the side extension meets the top of the pocket, and you're going to line up your edges. And you want the smaller section of fabric that's showing to be against the edge of your pocket. And I'm having trouble there. There we go. I tend to clip the front side, then flip it over and make sure I get the back aligned as well. Okay, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. We're going to put our seam allowance in, and then we'll do the other side. Okay, this seam allowance calls for a scant 1/4 of an inch. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it just means that you sew slightly less than a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. This is important, I promise. It does help with the way that the pocket lies. So I like to sew from the top fold down so I don't push the side extension out of whack. So go ahead and do a back stitch. And sew your extension in place. What we're going to do now is back up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to flip my side extension out and give it a good finger press. If you want to take it over to your iron and give it a good press down, feel free to. And what we're going to do next is just top stitch our side extension down to our pocket. Okay, we are going to do the same thing on the other side. Now we have our side extensions on and top stitched. Next we need to measure from this top fold down the specified length in the pattern, and we're going to trim off this bottom edge. All right, there we go. We have that bottom edge trimmed off. The last thing we want to do for our card pocket for it to be complete is we want to do a zigzag stitch or an overlock stitch across this bottom, because this bottom edge is just going to be left open and raw. It won't be seen, it will be protected when we fold the exterior of the wallet over it, so you won't actually see this, but doing that will keep it from fraying with use. So just do an overlock stitch or a zigzag stitch across the bottom here. Okay, there is your card pocket. It is all done. Set it to the side and we're going to move on to our zipper pocket. We are now on the zipper pocket assembly section of our pattern. This is page 12. We are making the front of the zipper pocket, which is going to be where the card pocket slots are. So we're going to do this basically the same way we made the card pocket. You're going to use your diagram and place your marks on the edges of your zipper front pocket. Again, the first measurement is going to be from the left edge, and then each measurement after that is going to be from the previous mark. For this one, we are going to fold it right side together first, because this is not going to have a back to it. With the card pocket is going to be the back of the zipper pocket. So your first fold is going to be right sides together. If I can find my first mark. There it is. Give it a good press. And then wrong sides together for your second fold. And then you're going to continue on right side, wrong side. This one only has 4 folds total. All right, there we go. There is the front of our zipper pocket. We're going to do the same thing we did previously on the card pocket. We're going to top stitch across the top of each of these folds, and then we're going to put our dividing line in, and we're going to baste the sides. Our next step is to add the zipper onto our zipper pocket. You're going to take your zipper tab pieces and you're going to fold them in half lengthwise and make a crease. Then you're going to open it back up and you're going to fold the raw edges into the center. And then you're going to fold it back in half over those raw edges. Then give it a good press with your iron. And then we're going to come over here, and you're going to do that with both of them. Come over here. You're going to slide your zipper end so that it meets that fold. Your zipper end is going to be longer than your zipper, so there will be overhang. And you're going to do that on both sides. Make sure if you're using zipper tape that you have your zipper pull on before you put your zipper tabs on. I've done that before. Then you have to take everything off to get that zipper pull on. So just double check you have that zipper pull on from someone who's had experience of not getting it on. All right, we're just going to sew the zipper tabs on with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Try to make sure that that zipper end stays snug against the fold of the tab. Oop. Mine moved on me. All right, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Sometimes my zipper tabs don't like to obey, so I had to unpick that one, and we're starting it again. Let's try it again. There we go. All right, well, you're going to sew your zipper tab on. Hopefully it looks a little nicer than mine does. I don't know what... That didn't look very nice. Okay, we're going to sew the other one on the same way, although hopefully mine's not quite the same, and this one's better behaved than the first one. Oh yeah, that one was nicer. Okay. All right. There is our zipper tab, and we're going to move over and get them attached to our pocket. We have our zipper and we have our front zipper pocket. You want to go ahead and mark your center on your zipper. And then you're going to line up the center of your zipper with the center of the front side of your zipper pocket. That is the side that has the card pockets in it. Go ahead and flip your zipper so that the right side of the zipper is against the right side of the pocket front, and clip in place. If you want, you can trim off this extra overhang from your zipper. That is completely up to you. Once your zipper's clipped, you're going to take one of your zipper pockets. That's going to be your zipper lining, so one of the zipper lining of the pockets. And you're going to turn that wrong side down and place it over the top of your zipper so that your zipper is sandwiched between a lining piece and the front of your pocket. Make sure all the sides and tops line up nicely. And then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew along this top edge and attach our zipper to our zipper pocket. If you'd like to use a zipper foot, feel free. I don't really find it necessary with my machine. Make sure you keep that zipper pull out of the way. Now we're going to flip our pocket lining to the inside. And if you would like to go give it a little press to get your seam nice and flat, or you can just do a quick finger press. We are going to top stitch along the front of our pocket. there we have it, top stitched along the top. We're going to go and we're going to put the back of our zipper pocket on along with the other zipper lining. We're going to do the same thing with this side with our zipper back, right side up. We're going to take our zipper, right sides together. We're going to match up our centers on the pocket and our center on the zipper and clip in place. And then we're going to get our back, right sides together, line up your sides and your top edge here, and sandwich the zipper between the two pieces. Okay. Again, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. We're going to we're going to stitch along the top here, flip it over, and then top stitch like we did on the other side. Our next step is to put our side extensions on our zipper pocket. You're going to want your zipper pocket open so it's flat. Make sure that your zipper linings are on the side they're supposed to be on. And just like before, you want to make sure that your smaller side that's showing is going to be against your zipper edge, or I'm sorry, your pocket edge. And you're going to fold your side extension in half. Make sure you have a good crease for this one because you're going to need it to see. If you want, I'm going to put a little mark on here so you can see easier what I'm doing. You don't have to do that. You can just use your crease as a guide if you can see it well enough. Okay, so you're going to take your side extension and you're going to keep it open, and I want you to line your crease up with the top of your front zipper pocket. So go ahead and line up the side and have that crease right at the top edge of your front zipper pocket and clip it in place. Okay, so see how my crease is right there at that top edge. Okay, now we're going to go to the sewing machine. We're going to sew again with that scant 1/4 of an inch. We're going to sew from the bottom and we're going to stop right here at our crease. Don't go past it, from the bottom to the crease. Okay, remember we're going to stop at that crease. Go ahead and back stitch. Right there. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side with the other side extension. Fold it in. Our next step is to get the rest of our side extension sewn onto our pocket. With the zipper here is not tricky, but a little different than how we had to do it for the card pocket. So what I want you to do, move that side extension out of the way, and I want you to pinch your zipper tab up so that the side or the top of your front card pocket and the back of your front card pocket meet. You see? So you just pinch that together and the tops of the front and the back will meet. So go ahead and clip that. Okay. I find it a little easier to turn it over. And get those ends met. And then I'm going to clip it in place. And then you're going to line up the rest of the side extension piece with the edges of your pocket and clip those. And once these are clipped, the sides here, it does get a little better to keep everything where it's supposed to be. Okay. So you see my zipper is popped up and my side extension is clipped to the back of the pocket, and the front of the pocket and the back of the pocket's tops meet at that corner. All right, we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to start at that crease where we stopped. So that line that I put in, we're going to start there and we're going to sew down. Okay. Remember, we're going to start at that crease. We're going to start where we stopped our first stitch line. We're going to sew with that scant 1/4 inch, making sure to keep everything pinched together. This isn't as hard with a Felicity Wallet. It's a little trickier when you're doing the mini because there's a little less room to work with the mini pocket. If it's not perfect the first time you do it, it's okay. Most of this gets hidden in the final sewing. So just do your best. It'll get easier the more times you make this wallet. All right, so you can see now when I fold this down, the fold of my side extension is going to be at the tops of my pocket. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now we have both our side pockets, our side extensions sewn onto our pocket, both sides. So we're going to open those up, finger press those seams flat, make sure that zipper's popped out. And we're just going to fold it in half. Your bottom, or I'm sorry, this is actually your front, but your front at the bottom is going to be longer than your back is at the bottom. That will all be trimmed So don't try to meet up the bottom edges. Just go by your top edges and where your zipper is. We're going to top stitch down the sides of our seam of our side extensions. This is also going to close your zipper pocket on the sides. So make sure all your pieces are tucked in where they're supposed to be tucked in. All right, so now we're going to sew down each of our seam allowances with the top of our, of our side extensions with a top stitch. Okay. There is our zipper pocket. You're going to go over and trim from the tops of your side extensions here, not the top of the zipper, but from the top of the side extension. Use that as the edge of your measurement. Go ahead and trim off the bottom to the designated size that's in the pattern, and then we'll do an overcast stitch across the bottom. Here we go. We have our zipper pocket cut to size. Now we're going to do a zigzag or overcast stitch along this bottom edge that will help it from fraying and also close up your zipper pocket at the bottom. Okay, there we go. Our zipper pocket is finished. It can go over there with our card pocket, and guys, we are getting close to done. We are now onto our interior assembly section of the pattern, which is on the bottom of page 17, and we're going to be making our strap attach. So you want to take your piece, you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to open it back up and fold your raw edges into that center crease, and then fold it again to enclose those edges. Now we're going to take it over here and we're going to sew down each long side. We're going to take our D-ring, we're going to place it through, or place the strap attached through the D-ring and fold it over, and we're just going to sew across this bottom section here to keep the D-ring in place. Right, there we go. Now we're going to come back to our interior lining. You want to mark the centers on each side, and then you're going to want to mark your midline here right in the middle. So how I do that, I fold my lining in half long ways. And then I just finger press the center here. To get a crease here in the center. I like doing that better than marking it with a pen. Sometimes a pen doesn't always come out well, and I don't want to have that in the center of my wallet. Next, you're going to measure from your middle lines, or your center points here on the edges, out the length that the pattern calls for. I went ahead and just marked on each side of the center line that dimension. If you want to just put your ruler on that center point and measure from there, you can. I like marking the lines, just helps me see it a little bit better on each side as I line up this. Doesn't really matter which pocket you want, whether it's the zipper pocket or the card pocket. But what you're going to do is you're going to line up your your side extensions here with the marks or with your ruler from the midline. And then you're going to line up your center with this crease that we put in the middle. I just kind of eyeball where my divider stitching is, because that's going to be the center of your pocket. So I just kind of line that up with the middle. Then I make sure these are all where they need to be. And you're going to clip it in place. Once that's clipped in place, we're going to do the same thing on the other side with the other pocket. So again, line up your side extensions, the distance away from the center point that's in the pattern, and then line up your center stitching here that divided the pockets with that crease that you put in the middle. And then clip in place. Now I'm going to combine the next step here. In the pattern it tells you to go ahead and baste the sides and then come back and add your strap attachment. I'm going to go ahead and add my strap attachment now here at the center line. Just half in the middle of your strap attachment, just put that right on top of your center point there on the side and clip it in place. And then you can just baste all the way across on this side and then baste your pockets together. You don't have to do it in 2 steps like the pattern has it broken up. You can just do it all at once. So let's head over to the sewing machine. Okay, we're going to baste down the sides here just with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance or slightly more. You're going to notice that your side extensions do hang over the edge of the lining here. Just go ahead and baste it. You're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance when you put it all together. So if you get more than 1/8 of an inch, don't worry. As long as you don't get more than 1/2 inch, you're not going to see these stitches. We're just going to go up the side of the pocket and then make sure your strap attachment is where it needs to be, and then just continue on down the lining, down the next side extension for the other pocket. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, except you don't have to worry about the strap attachment. pockets are basted, we're going to move on to our next step. We are now at the exterior assembly section of our pattern. It's on page 19. You're going to have your exterior that you sewed together at the very beginning. You're going to flip it over to the wrong side. Then you're going to get your template that you use to cut your curves for the exterior and the lining. And on here you're going to have your snap placements. There is a measurement in the pattern if you don't want to use a template, but if you have the template, I tell you it's a lot easier to use the template. So go ahead, put your template on, line up all your edges, and mark your snap placement, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now that we got the snap placement on there, we're going to go ahead and put our magnetic snaps in. Because I've quilted mine, and you can see my placement is really close to this line, I'm going to need to be careful to not cut through my stitches so my quilting doesn't come out. Okay. I use the anchor for the snaps to mark where my prongs are going to go in, and then I just take a seam ripper and I carefully go in and cut on those lines. You want to do this very gently because you don't want to put too much pressure and cut too much, because you don't want your fabric, don't want a hole in your fabric where it doesn't need to be. All right, you're also going to want to have some scrap pieces of firm stabilizer. I've already marked and cut these. That will help make sure nothing pulls through the fabric as you use it. So make sure that you have your female ends and your male ends on the same side, and then we'll just put those in. All right, there we go. I like to put just a little bit of either fleece or woven interfacing over the top of these. Either glue it on or iron it on, just to keep it from rubbing against the rest of the fabric, this hard metal part. So I'm going to go do that, and then we'll get started on the next step. Now we are moving on to the wallet assembly section, still at the bottom of page 19. What we need to do is we need to have our exterior and our interior, and we are going to place them right sides together. So you want to line up your centers and go ahead and clip those. Okay. Now you're just going to clip all the way around the wallet. Now that we've got it clipped, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That is why we have our interfacing a 1/2 inch smaller than our exterior and our lining. It is easy to just, if you have it that way, to just sew right at the edge of your interfacing. You're going to sew all the way around, but you're going to leave one of your curved edges open. So I like to start here just into the curve, and then I sew around, sew this curve, and sew back over here, and then I'm going to stop just to the inside of the curve on the other side. And I'm going to leave this whole curve open, and we're going to use that space for turning the wallet right side out. So let's head over to the sewing machine. Okay, we're going to start our sewing just on the inside of the curve. And this is where it's nice to have that interfacing, making sure it's 1/2 inch, because it's easy to find the curve by just using the edge of the interfacing. Okay, so we're just going to sew around the rest of the wallet and end over here. All right, so here's where we're going to end, at that curve there. All right, so we're going to take it over. Go ahead and trim your seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch. On the curve that you sewed, go ahead and either do pinking shears or clip in. Make sure you just don't clip the line. On the curve that we left open, don't trim it. Go ahead and clip in just short of where your interfacing is, about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch short of where your interfacing is. But go ahead and clip it, because we're going to fold that down before we turn it. All right, I have trimmed my edges. I have gotten my pinking shears out and pinked my curve here. And then for the curve I left open, I have just done some snips in. And I would say about only snip in to about 1/4 of an inch away from your interfacing. This is going to be tucked in around the curve. It is easier to go ahead and tuck the fabric down around the curve, and you're just going to use your interfacing as a guide for where to fold this. I guess it's not really tucking, it's folding it down over your interfacing now before you turn it and iron that down, get a nice crease. Then when you turn it and you need to tuck it in, you already have a crease where it needs to go, and it makes it a lot easier to tuck it in. Some people use a little bit of glue around to just hold it in place. If you want to do that, I haven't tried that, but I'm sure it would work quite well. If I had my glue over here, I might actually try it right now. But just go ahead and you're just going to pull this down so that it folds right at the interfacing. So pull your lining on one side and get that ironed down. And we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're just going to pull it down and we're going to iron it right along the interfacing. I need to be a little more careful on this side because I have my fleece and I don't want to melt that. So this side isn't going to get creased quite as well, but it will be there for me to see when we flip it. Okay. So now we're just going to turn this right side out. So you're going to reach in, grab your edge, and pull it through. The opening is nice and big. You shouldn't have any problems getting it to turn the right way. There are your pockets. This one flipped, whoops, this one flipped pretty well for me. And my pockets were on the right side, or the correct side. Sometimes when you're flipping, one of your pockets might get on the opposite side of what it's supposed to be. Just flip it around. No big deal. Flip it to the lining side. All right, so there we go. Now I like to take my iron and just give this a good press. Get my seams nice and flat, especially here at the pockets. I want to get those pressed down as well as I can. All right, so this is why I said it was easier to iron it before. Now you already have your creases in there, so you can just fold those back in. If you have any odd ones where just the lining in the exterior one is, you know, sticks out way past the other, those can be fixed easily. But now you don't have to try to tuck everything and make sure it stays where it's tucked. You can just use those creases to put them right back where they were. My iron has a whole bunch of lint on it apparently that's coming off. Okay. Now that we have our opening tucked in, everything kind of ironed down nicely, we're going to go over to our sewing machine I'm going to move my iron out of the way. We're going to go over to our sewing machine, and we are going to start here at the top of our corner, outside corner. We're going to sew this opening closed and stop over here. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, just so it matches. So we're going to top stitch basically both of our curved ends. We're going to start at this outer corner. I don't like to back stitch. I like to leave a long tail and pull through and tie off for a little bit cleaner of a stitch line. Okay. Now I am going to pull through my stitches, tie them off and tuck in my ends, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, we are on our final steps. We have our edges, our curved edges sewn and top stitched. Everything pressed nice. We're going to flip it over to the lining side. And what you want to do is you want to fold your curved edges so that they meet the top edge of your pocket. It should be right at the bottom of the pocket where the fold is going to go. And go ahead and clip that in place. There's that side. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. If you find that when you fold it, you're starting to fold your pocket, and if you fold it right at the edge, it like only comes to here, that's okay. Let it come to there. It's better not to have a huge lump here at the bottom. Okay, there we have it. Our edges are folded in. We don't have any overhang. All right, this is going to be the thickest part that you're going to sew. Before we go over, I do like to fold mine in half, make sure my snaps line up. Hey, look at that. All my stripes line up really nicely. I was a little worried I was going to get a little crooked there, but that looks nice. All right, so it looks like everything lines up well. Yep. Okay, so we're going to take it over to our sewing machine, and we're just going to sew straight down each side. All right, I have my fresh needle. Make sure you're using a heavier duty needle like a denim needle. And I am going to hand crank this because I have 2 layers of fusible fleece because I quilted this. So it's a little thicker than I would like it to be, even with my heavy duty machine, just to like straight sew. I find that my stitches are uneven. Sometimes if I have really thick fabric. So I'm just going to hand crank it. We're just going to go. I will speed it up so you guys don't have to sit there and see me move it so slow. We're just going to stitch down the edge. You're going to want to start about 1/4 of an inch away from this bottom fold, just to give yourself a little bit of room. I'm going to leave a long tail instead of back stitching, because again, I like to pull it, tie it off, tuck it in, to have a cleaner line there at the beginning and the end. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so I didn't actually have to hand crank very much of that. I just did it to start the stitching, and then when I went over this edge here. So there we have it. We have our pocket sewn. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, we have our edges sewn together. Let's get these tails tucked in and look at the final thing. Threads are tucked in. Here we go. It's finished, guys. So go ahead and close it all up. Take a good look at it. Give it a little squeeze to flatten the bottom out there. And there we have it. Your zipper pocket with your card pockets. You have a slip pocket here in the front and behind. On this side we have our 6 card slots, a nice big one and one in the front. And then don't forget, if you want, you have your strap. You hook that on and you're ready to go. I will link the pattern for my website. There's also the mini Felicity. It's about half the size. Made the exact same way, except that you just don't put your divider pockets in there. You can bundle those 2 patterns if you want to get both of them. And there you have it. I hope you enjoy making your Felicity wallet. Thanks!